In the last video, I did a fair objective review of Pax Dei. In this video, I'm going to talk a bit about why I am interested in this game while I still have it right behind Ashes in terms of my interest, and how it could even overtake Ashes in terms of my interest. Some of this will be speculative to some extent. First, why would I be interested in multiple upcoming MMOs? This is something I get asked a lot. Well, because there have been so many MMOs that were in development that I was interested in that never released or never lived up to their full potential. Both Ashes and Pax Dei are loaded with potential, but I'm not blinded by my optimism enough to not know that there are several ways that they could fail. For me, the reason Ashes is number one in my interest level is because we know everything about what they want to do with the game. Pax Dei, we don't know everything yet. There are a lot of differences between the two. Ashes is a sand park, Pax Dei is a full-blown sandbox. Ashes has a massive scope, which is one reason it could end up failing because there is so much they have to get right to make it all work. While Pax Dei has a much smaller and reasonable scope. Pax Dei started development in 2019, Ashes in 2016. As of right now, Pax Dei looks like it has a legit shot to launch before Ashes. Possibly even well before Ashes. Having played Ashes in Alpha 1 and playing this Alpha, Pax Dei has a lot more built out than Ashes did in 2021. But the struggle Pax Dei will have is that so many sandbox MMOs have struggled historically. That is their biggest challenge. Can they create a sandbox that has staying power? Because player-created content hasn't always worked that well, at least long-term. The lack of a clear direction for players and the complexity of sandboxes can be tough to overcome. The developers creating some of the content helps. And to be fair, there really is no such thing as a true sandbox. Pax Dei has dungeons and eventually will have raids, for instance, which are created by the developers. The key for Pax Dei is to create the tools for players to create a tremendous amount of content, and with the devs coming from EVE Online, one of the only sandbox MMOs to have success, I think they do know how to do that. And as I said, sandbox MMOs have mostly not done that well in the last 10 years. So both could fail, but how could Pax Dei actually overtake Ashes for me in terms of interest? Well, I'll be honest, it's probably going to be hard, but I'm going to start with the combat. We know very little about the combat direction for Pax Dei, but here's what we do know. We know this is a low fantasy MMO. We know in low fantasy MMOs, the number of skills are usually limited in the combat system. And we know the devs have said magic will be rare, and so far in the alpha that is the case. For me, I do prefer high fantasy and a lot of abilities. I don't have a huge preference on action or tab, but I have not seen action done that well in an MMO, at least in my opinion, except for a few rare exceptions. The best examples of action combat, in my opinion, were WildStar, Black Desert Online, and Terra. Of those, Terra's combat styles the only one that would potentially work in this MMO, because of the third-person perspective. So part of this is preference, but the thing I dislike about action systems is how they often feel so dumbed down to me in MMOs. The only skill tends to be in aiming, but in an RPG, some classes don't have any issue aiming, like the tank or melee DPS. Or even the healer can just move closer to make sure they hit heals. I also dislike animation locking and rooted motion on skills. So far with the bare bones combat, we do not see rooted motion, so that helps. Combat matters a lot and we all have different preferences. Ashes is a hybrid of Guild Wars 2 and Arcade Combat, which I feel are some of the better combat systems we have seen in MMOs. So that is certainly one reason why I favor it now in terms of its combat. Then we have the PvP. The PvP in Ashes is fully known and is a hybrid of Arcade and Lineage 2. For a fan of open world PvP, I still believe Ashes has the potential to be the best we've ever seen in the genre. For Pax Dei, we don't know yet. All they have said is that there will be contested provinces built that are PvP flagged areas. In these areas, you will drop some of your gear if killed. The provinces will have resources that cannot be harvested elsewhere. They will not necessarily be better resources, but they will be exclusive resources. And that compares to Albion with the Black Zones or Eve with the nullsec areas. Will that be enough for me to move it above Ashes in terms of PvP? For me, I'd probably want more than that. With the building systems this game has, I would love to be able to build a massive castle with my clan and be able to siege other clans. Maybe a territory control zone map could exist, where if you have a settlement built on a spot, you get certain rewards. Others can siege you and try to get those rewards. In order for that to work, they would have to massively increase the phasing limits, and the action combat would need to work in a large-scale situation. So for me, those are the biggest things I want to know more about regarding Pax Dei: the combat, the PvP, and the phasing limits. The future of those will determine my long-term interest level. Right now it remains very high, but let's see what the future brings. Either way, keeping multiple MMOs available as potential long-term MMOs until these games start to release is the strategy I will continue to use. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.